My name is Ava, and if you'd met me a year ago, you'd have called me put together. I had the house with the pale blue shutters, a golden retriever named Millie, a husband who always opened jars for me even when I didn't ask, and a teaching career I genuinely loved. I wasn't glamorous, but I was settled, reliable, the kind of woman people leaned on. But the thing about being everyone's safe place is no one wonders if you're quietly falling apart. It started with a folded receipt. Funny how something so small can change your entire life. Derek had come home late from work on a Tuesday, muttering about an audit running long and how he just grabbed a bite with a client downtown. I didn't think twice, why would I? I tossed his slacks into the laundry hamper and found the receipt in his pocket the next morning while sorting whites from colors. It wasn't the dinner that bothered me. It was the necklace. A jewelry store, not a restaurant. One item. White gold heart pendant, custom engraving. Cost $1,475. Date 2 days ago. It wasn't for me. I hadn't gotten a gift from Derek since our 10-year anniversary. And even that was a spa voucher printed from the internet. My throat tightened. My palms itched. But I didn't confront him. Not yet. Instead, I tucked the receipt into my underwear drawer and went about my day. Made coffee. Walked Millie. Graded a stack of 10th grade essays. Smiled through a PDA meeting like my world wasn't about to tip on its axis. I told myself maybe it was for his mother. Maybe he was planning a surprise. But my gut said otherwise. Derek had been different lately. Distracted. Protective of his phone. Spending weekends working. Or taking suspiciously long jogs with his phone on Do Not Disturb. He'd started grooming more carefully, even bought cologne he used to say gave him headaches. But here's the kicker. He wasn't cruel. Not outwardly. He still kissed my forehead every morning. Still asked if I wanted anything when he went to the store. Still played fetch with Millie in the backyard like nothing was wrong. That's the part that messed with my head. Because if someone treats you terribly, you can build rage. But when they act like they still love you, you start to question your own reality. I didn't tell anyone. Not yet. Instead, I did what I've always done when I'm scared. I got organized. I started keeping notes. Tiny details. Patterns. Receipts. GPS locations on our shared iPad. Changes in his schedule. And then came Thanksgiving. We were supposed to host, but Derek claimed work emergencies and left me to explain to my family why he was stuck at the office during a national holiday. That's when Eliza, my sister, offered to help clean up. She laughed too loud at my jokes. She brought an extra bottle of wine. She kept checking her phone when she thought I wasn't looking. Eliza, the wild one. The sister who never settled. Who called me boring for staying in a small town. Eliza, who used to crash on our couch after messy breakups. Who Derek used to say was too much for his taste. That Eliza. Something about her that night, her jumpiness, the way she avoided saying Derek's name, made my stomach twist. I thought about the necklace again. And suddenly my brain did the math. 1,000 tiny data points snapped into place like magnets pulling into a pattern I didn't want to see. I went to bed with a smile on my face and a hand on Derek's side of the bed, cold as usual. And I made a decision. I was going to find out the truth. No more guessing. No more second-guessing myself. The next morning I called in sick to work. By noon I had a burner phone. By 2 I had a private investigator. A real one. Not some shady guy from Craigslist, but a woman named Beatrice Clay who used to work federal fraud cases. I don't need hard proof, I told her. Just tell me if he's cheating. And who she is. Her response was cold but professional. You'll have what you need in 10 days. 10 days. I could survive 10 days. But I didn't expect what happened next. Because on day 7 the world collapsed faster than I could control it. It started with an email, a group one. From Derek. Sent to me. And someone named Monica Rivers. But he didn't mean to send it to both of us. Subject line. Can't wait until she's out of the picture. And the body? It was worse. He wrote about me like I was a business transaction. How he was working on the prenup reversal. How he couldn't stand the fake smiles anymore. And how Eliza promised she'd handle the apartment lease if I stalled Ava long enough. Eliza. He named her. And suddenly the rest of the world went quiet. That email wasn't meant for me. But I got it. And it wasn't Monica. It was my own blood. My sister. I didn't reply. Instead, I copied the email, saved it, and sent it to Beatrice. Then I got into my car and drove. Not to confront Derek. Not yet. I drove to Eliza's place. She wasn't home. But her car was parked across town, in front of a hotel, where she was registered under a fake name, Mrs. Ava Harrison. She used my name to cover her tracks, and she was inside with Derek. I stood in the hotel parking lot, staring at the name on the digital check-in screen. My name, on her reservation, and I knew this wasn't just infidelity. It was betrayal in its rawest, ugliest form. And they thought I wouldn't find out? They thought I was too predictable? Good. Let them think that. Because that was the last time I'd ever let them write the narrative. And the next chapter? It was mine. By the time Beatrice sent me the photos, I no longer needed them. I had already seen enough with my own eyes. The hotel room. The fake reservation under my name. The trail of charges on our joint card that led right to room 311 at the Fernbrook Inn. But Beatrice was thorough. The manila envelope arrived with a crisp label. Client, Ava Harrison. Case number 4579 surveillance results. Inside, 83 photos. Dozens of timestamps.
Hotel check-ins.
Coffee meetups. A weekend trip Derek said was a team-building retreat in Charleston. Only Eliza was there, wrapped around him in every shot like ivy. There were no doubts left. None. Only questions. How long had it been going on? Had it started after our 5th anniversary? The 8th? Was there ever a moment during those years when I wasn't being lied to? And then came the worst thought of all. Was my whole marriage just a cover for them? It made me feel sick. I sat on the floor of my bedroom, photos scattered around me like broken glass, and tried to remember what my life felt like before I knew the truth. But I couldn't. The betrayal had erased everything before it. And still, I didn't confront them. Not yet, because I wasn't done learning. I had a theory, one that made my chest ache and my throat tighten, and I needed to know if it was true, so I played my part. I still made dinner. Still texted Derek to remind him about my parents' anniversary dinner. Still smiled when he said he'd be working late. He was lying to my face, but I wasn't angry anymore. I was calm, because I had a plan, a real one, and it started with that anniversary dinner. It wasn't from my parents. It wasn't even real. It was bait. I made reservations at Hollow and Vine, Derek's favorite restaurant, a small, candlelit place in the downtown historic district. I knew he hadn't been there with me in over a year. Too many work emergencies. But guess who he had been there with? Eliza. Beatrice had photos. The reservation was for 2 people, under the name Derek Evans. I made it using a fake voice and a burner phone. And then I made a second reservation, at the table directly across from it. That one was under my real name. And I had a guest. Someone I hadn't spoken to in over a decade. Liam Rivers, Eliza's ex-husband. Yes, my sister's ex. The man she divorced after claiming he cheated. He hadn't. Turns out, Eliza had rewritten the story. She'd manipulated everyone, even me, into thinking Liam was the villain. But when I found out Derek and Eliza were staying in a cabin that Liam still owned, one Eliza had insisted he sell in the divorce, I realized he was a loose thread they hadn't considered. I called him, told him everything. He didn't even hesitate. She's always been poison, Liam said, voice low and tired. I'll be there. We met outside the restaurant at 6:45. I wore the navy dress Derek bought me on our 9th anniversary, the one I hadn't worn since he told me I looked tired in it. Liam wore a simple button-down, hair longer than I remembered, but those same serious eyes. The kind that had always looked a little wounded, even when he smiled. We didn't hug. Didn't need to. We walked in together, calm, quiet like a couple. I spotted Derek immediately. He was already seated, wearing the blazer I bought him last Christmas. Eliza sat across from him, wine in hand, laughing. She saw me first. Her eyes locked on mine. She froze. Her wineglass tilted slightly in her hand, and she had to catch it. Then Derek turned. He went pale. The color drained so fast I almost felt sorry for him. Almost. I didn't say a word. Just took my seat at the table across from them, facing them. Liam smiled at me, leaned in and whispered, "She looks like she's seen a ghost." She has, I whispered back. 2 of them. It was a small restaurant. No privacy. Just candlelight, clinking forks, and the kind of music that makes everything feel too quiet. I could feel Derek's eyes on me. Could feel Eliza panicking. But I didn't look at them again. Instead, I laughed at Liam's stories. Took my time with my wine. And when the waiter came to ask if I'd like dessert, I said loudly, "No thank you. I'm just here to enjoy the view." They left before us. I didn't stop them. Let them stew in it. Let them wonder. I knew they'd reach out soon. And they did. Eliza texted me first that night. "We need to talk. Please." Then Derek an hour later. "I can explain everything." No, they couldn't. But they'd try. And I wanted to hear the lies, wanted to record them. So I agreed. Told them we'd talk. Separately. Eliza came to the house first. She stood in my doorway like a wet cat, mascara smudged, looking 17 again. The version of her that used to cry when she got dumped, needing me to comfort her. But I wasn't that sister anymore. "Ava," she whispered. "Please just let me explain. Explain how long you've been sleeping with my husband?" I said. She flinched. But she didn't deny it. "I didn't mean for it to happen." "I'm sure you didn't," I said flatly. "You never mean for anything to happen. It just always conveniently benefits you." "It started after your 3rd miscarriage," she said quietly. "He was broken. You were cold." Don't finish that sentence," I snapped. "Don't you dare put this on me." She looked down. I stared at her for a long time. And I realized something. She wasn't even sorry. She was scared. Scared of what I would do. Scared that the woman she used to dismiss as the predictable sister was no longer playing by the old rules. And she was right to be afraid. Because I wasn't done. Not even close. Derek was next. And this time, I had a trap waiting. Derek showed up 2 days later right on cue. He texted first. Asked if we could meet somewhere neutral. Said he didn't want any drama. I suggested the porch of our own home. Where it all started. Where I used to sit waiting for him to come home. While he was across town tangled up in my sister's sheets. He wore the same tired charm he always did. Soft voice. Head tilted. A concerned expression that used to make me feel safe. Now it made my skin crawl. I opened the door and stepped outside with 2 cups of coffee. His eyebrows lifted. "I didn't poison it, Derek," I said calmly. "Relax." He chuckled awkwardly, but his hands shook when he took the cup. We sat. Quiet for a minute. The wind rustled the maple leaves. Millie barked faintly in the backyard. And then he said it. "I messed up, Ava." That's what he opened with. Like he'd dropped a glass, not detonated a bomb. "I never meant to hurt you." That old line. That tired, gutless line. I was confused. Eliza was there. She understood things you didn't. You were so distant after the miscarriages, and I. "Stop," I said. He blinked. I didn't want his script. "I know everything, Derek. I've seen the emails. The hotel reservations. The necklace. I've seen the pictures. I even know about the Charleston weekend." His mouth parted. But nothing came out. "I know you stayed at Liam's cabin. I know Eliza used my name at the Fernbrook Inn. And I know about the Hollow and Vine receipts you said were for clients." He looked sick. "You had options, Derek. Counseling. Honesty. Divorce. But you chose deceit. You chose her." His eyes glistened and for a moment I saw fear. Not guilt. Fear.
I'm sorry, Ava.
I panicked. I didn't know how to stop it once it started. "You didn't want to stop it." He didn't argue. Good. He was learning. I let the silence stretch, then leaned forward, hands wrapped around my cup like I needed the warmth. I didn't. I just wanted the moment to look gentle. So he'd never see what was coming. "Derek," I said slowly, "you know our finances better than anyone, right?" He nodded, relieved by the change of topic.
Ido.
"I've always handled our investments." "Why?" "Because I found an account," I said. "One I didn't know existed." His face twitched. "Ava, under your name only. Registered to your work email. You've been moving funds from our joint accounts into it for over a year." "I had to protect myself," he blurted. "You were always so practical, so controlling about money."
No.
You were hiding it. I pulled out a small folder, set it on the table between us. He stared at it like it might explode. It's all there, I said. Every transfer. Every withdrawal. Every lie. You weren't just having an affair. You were building an escape plan. His voice cracked. I swear I wasn't trying to steal. You moved over $96,000, Derek. He said nothing. Just stared. I found it because you're sloppy, I continued. You used the same security answers as our old joint savings account. Same passwords. Same recovery email. You never even changed your mother's maiden name. He tried to reach for the folder. I pulled it back.
No.
You don't get to control this. Then I stood. You're going to leave this house by Friday. I've already filed for divorce. You'll be served by the end of the week. He went pale. Ava, we can't afford. You can't afford to lose the image, I know. But don't worry. You'll still get to keep your precious image. Until I decide you shouldn't. That shook him. And then came the twist of the knife. By the way, I added as I opened the door, I sent your financial records to your employer. His mouth fell open. You what? Just the ones tied to our accounts. I figured they should be aware of how you're mismanaging money. Wouldn't want them to risk liability. You vindictive.
No.
Just efficient. He lunged forward, trying to grab the folder again. I slammed the door in his face and locked it. Millie barked behind me, tail wagging like it was just another Tuesday. I slid down against the door, heart pounding, breath sharp. Not from fear, but from the kind of adrenaline that only comes when the prey realizes they're not the predator anymore. I didn't cry. I didn't scream. I just sat there, smiling through the burn in my lungs. Let him call it petty. Let him spin his little sob stories about a cold wife and a reckless sister. I didn't care. Because I had the upper hand now. And I wasn't done. There was one last person I needed to see before the real fire started. Eliza's ex-husband, Liam, had given me something else. Something I hadn't expected. A memory. Something he said in passing that kept me up at night. Eliza never lies without a reason. If she's covering for someone, it's because there's more under the surface than you think. I didn't understand what he meant. Not until I opened a box in our attic labeled Christmas. Inside was something that didn't belong. A sealed envelope. And inside that, a letter from my father. Postmarked 8 years ago. But never opened. Never given to me. Intercepted. By Eliza. I didn't even know he had written to me. Because she never gave it to me. My heart thudded in my chest. This wasn't just a betrayal between lovers anymore. This was deeper. Older. Rotting from the inside out. Eliza had been lying to me long before Derek ever touched her. And I was about to find out why. The envelope was weathered. Yellowing at the edges, its glue brittle. A faded USPS stamp in the corner. Postmarked from Memphis. My hands shook as I peeled it open. Already knowing whatever was inside would change everything. Inside was a single page. Folded 3 times. It wasn't long. But it cut deep. Dear Ava. I know I'm the last person you expect to hear from. Maybe even the last you want to. But I'm writing you because you deserve to know the truth. I never left by choice. I made mistakes, yes. But I didn't walk out on you and your mother. I was pushed. Eliza knows more than she's ever admitted. And if she hasn't told you yet, ask her who paid for her private college tuition. Ask her who signed the settlement that kept your mother's name off the hospital paperwork after the accident. You're smart. Smarter than anyone's ever given you credit for. If you're reading this, maybe you've finally started asking questions. I'm sorry I wasn't there. But it was never because I didn't love you. Love always. Dad. I stared at the letter for a long time. 8 years ago. It had been sealed all this time. Hidden. Intercepted by my own sister. I remembered that Christmas. It had snowed early, Derek had just gotten the promotion, and Eliza was staying with us after a breakup. I'd been distracted, busy wrapping presents and playing hostess. And that's exactly when she must have found it. And kept it. Tears welled in my eyes, not the kind that sting. The kind that taste like acid. That come from the realization that you've been blind your whole life to the person standing next to you. I didn't even know what the letter meant yet. But I didn't care. Eliza had made a choice. She'd buried a piece of my father's truth. On purpose. And now I was going to find out why. The next morning, I went to visit someone I hadn't seen in over 20 years. Frankie Miles, my father's old mechanic and closest friend before our family fell apart. He still ran the same auto shop, still kept a photo of my dad in a dusty frame behind the register. I stood there in his office like a ghost from another life. He looked up and his jaw dropped. Ava.
Y Frankia. Y whisperat.
He stood, walked around the counter slowly, and pulled me into a gentle, hesitant hug. I never thought I'd see you again, he said. I have questions. He nodded like he'd been waiting for this day. We sat in his back office, oil-stained folders shoved aside, sunlight filtering through faded blinds. I found a letter, I said. From my dad. Dated 8 years ago. Frankie sighed. He wrote you more than one. I don't think any of them made it to you. What happened? I asked. He always said he didn't abandon us. That someone pushed him out. What did he mean? Frankie leaned back in his chair, rubbed his chin, then said the words that made my stomach turn. Your mom and Eliza cut him out, Ava. Not because he was a bad man, but because he wasn't useful anymore. What? Your mom was sick. After the accident, the medical bills were massive. Eliza was about to go off to a private art college she couldn't afford. Your dad refused to take a shady settlement from the trucking company that caused the accident, said it wasn't justice. But your mom disagreed. So did Eliza. He paused. Turns out, Eliza went behind his back. Convinced your mom to sign the settlement. Told her they didn't need him anymore. He found out and blew up. He left, yeah, but not because he didn't love you. Because he was betrayed. I stared at the desk. 1,000 memories flared up at once. The hushed arguments between Mom and Eliza. The tension every time Dad came up. How I was told he just left. That he couldn't handle responsibility. And I had believed them. I was just a kid, I said quietly. Exactly, Frankie replied. And they made sure you stayed in the dark. I left the shop in a daze, my chest hollowed out, grief and rage battling for space in my ribcage. Eliza hadn't just betrayed me recently. She'd been rewriting my life story since I was a teenager. The affair with Derek? It was just the final act in a much longer performance. And now? Now it was time for my own script. I went home, pulled out my laptop, opened the spreadsheet I'd been working on for weeks. The plan. I wasn't just divorcing Derek anymore. I was dismantling everything the two of them thought they built. Step by step. I scheduled a meeting with Derek's HR department, forwarding the financial discrepancies. I subpoenaed the shared savings account in Eliza's name. Turns out she and Derek had been hiding funds there for a future apartment. I alerted the landlord of that apartment, under a different name, but traced back to Derek's primary bank card. And then, I filed a civil lawsuit. Infliction of emotional distress, financial fraud, and malicious interference in a marriage contract. The names on the filing? Derek Evans and Eliza Williams. Eliza was served first. In front of a crowd of her entrepreneur brunch group. She called me 5 times that day. I didn't answer. Derek was served at work. According to Beatrice, he nearly threw up when he saw the envelope. They had underestimated me. The wife they thought was too boring to fight back. The sister they assumed would cry and disappear. And then the press caught wind. Not national, but local. One of Derek's clients, a city official, had been listed in financial dealings connected to a housing fund. It snowballed. Derek's firm placed him on immediate leave. Eliza lost a sponsorship deal with a local arts nonprofit. They both went into damage control mode. But the truth? They were sinking. And I hadn't even made my final move. Because revenge wasn't just about destruction. It was about truth. And the last truth, the one that tied all of this together, was hidden somewhere in Eliza's house. And I was going to find it. The day I walked into Eliza's house, I wasn't nervous. I was done feeling anything for her. No more pain, no more grief, no more confusion. I wasn't the little sister who idolized her anymore. I was the woman she underestimated. The one who'd turned every lie into leverage. The door was unlocked. Of course it was. She was at some healing retreat in the Blue Ridge Mountains, trying to rebrand herself online as a misunderstood visionary. I'd seen the Instagram posts, soft-lit selfies, captions about growing through what you go through. and a GoFundMe link for legal bills. The audacity would have been laughable if it weren't so insulting. Eliza had always been reckless with secrets. She hoarded them like trophies but never bothered to protect them. I walked straight past the living room, past the staged furniture and the collection of hand-poured candles, and into her bedroom. It looked the same as it had when we were kids. Polished, curated, performative. The vanity mirror still had the small crack in the bottom left corner, the one from when she threw a brush during a fight with her first fiancé. She'd covered it with a sticker that said, "Shatterproof." Ironic. I ran my fingers along the frame. Something caught my nail. Loose wood. I pried gently, popped open like a puzzle box, and there it was. A small silver flash drive, tucked inside the hollow of the mirror. Hidden, but not well. I didn't plug it in at her place. I wasn't stupid. I went home, pulled out an old laptop Beatrice had wiped clean for secure use, plugged in the drive, and waited. The folder was titled simply, Clients. My stomach dropped. Inside were subfolders. Dozens. Each labeled with initials and dates. At first, I didn't understand what I was looking at. Then I opened the first one. Emails, contracts, bank transfers, all under Eliza's consulting brand. The one she'd started after her third failed gallery show. Only she wasn't consulting. She was coaching. Coaching married men. Specifically, married men with influence. She advised them on how to exit marriages cleanly, emotionally, legally, financially, manipulation tactics, scripts, transfer strategies, how to subtly alienate a wife over time so she'd either beg to leave or appear emotionally unstable during divorce proceedings. And then her cut. She took money from them, emotional compensation, she called it, for helping them reclaim their personal identity. It made me sick. And there 3 folders in was Derek's name. The emails made it clear. He'd hired her before the affair began. She didn't fall into his arms. She built the landing pad. She coached my own husband on how to dismantle our marriage. Then she seduced him to close the loop. She didn't just betray me. She monetized it. I sat back in the chair, hands shaking, mouth dry. Every part of my life, every grief, every private moment, had been twisted into profit. My miscarriages, my financial discipline, my kindness, all used against me. I forwarded the entire drive to Beatrice. Then I called Liam. Eliza's not just a liar, I said. She's been helping married men ruin their wives financially. There's evidence. Lots of it. His silence spoke volumes. Finally, he said, I knew she manipulated people. This is business-level evil. She used her affair with Derek as leverage, I said. Not because she loved him, because it was convenient. He was her client before he was her lover. And now, he asked, what are you going to do? Expose her? Entirely. Are you sure? I didn't hesitate. She's ruined too many lives. Mine was just one of them. The next day, Beatrice and I met with a journalist from the Asheville Observer. A woman named Sandra who'd covered political corruption and high-profile divorces in the past. She was sharp, sober.
No nonsense.
I handed her the flash drive. I want you to verify everything, I said. And I want the story to focus on the women. The ones these men discarded. The wives who were pushed out of their own lives and told they were crazy for reacting. Sandra nodded slowly. You're not just exposing your sister. You're exposing a system. Yes, I said. Because my sister didn't just break my heart. She created a business that profited from breaking other women. She promised to keep my name confidential at first. But I knew eventually I'd have to own it. Stand in the storm of whispers. Be known as the woman whose husband slept with her sister and still lost everything. And I was okay with that. Because there was one thing Eliza hadn't counted on. I wasn't ashamed. The article broke 5 days later. Front page. Full column. Sisterhood for sale. The secret coaching business behind Asheville's quietest divorces. Hit like a bomb. Anonymous testimonies from women who had no idea their husbands had hired Eliza Harrison Consulting. Evidence of coordinated emotional manipulation. Financial documents. Even a few brave ex-clients who admitted they were guided into emotional detachment. The public turned. Derek's job was gone within 48 hours. Eliza's name was stripped from every nonprofit board she sat on. One of her former clients was already under internal review at a local firm. But that wasn't the victory. The victory came when I got a message request on Facebook from a woman in Michigan. I just read the article. I think your sister worked with my ex-husband. I finally feel seen. Then another. I knew I wasn't crazy. Thank you for putting this out there. And another. If you ever file a class action, I'm in. I didn't respond. Not yet. I just sat on my porch, dog at my feet, coffee in hand, and watched the sun rise over the mountains. My life wasn't fixed. It was changed, shattered, redrawn. But I'd done what they never saw coming. I told the truth, and I turned their poison into power. Only one thing remained. The face-to-face. Not Derek. Not Eliza. Myself. And the woman I saw in the mirror now? She wasn't predictable anymore. She was free. They say forgiveness is for the strong. That moving on means letting go. But I disagree. Forgiveness isn't always strength. Sometimes it's just silence in disguise. And silence is what Eliza and Derek counted on. They thought I'd walk away quietly, heal in private, let them rebuild their broken little lives without consequence. Maybe even come back around one day pretending things were complicated, like we all played a part. But I wasn't raised to let liars walk free. I was raised to believe in truth even if it hurt like hell. And now that truth was public record. The article spread like wildfire. Beatrice said the Observer's site crashed from traffic. 2 radio stations picked it up. A podcast even reached out to ask if I'd tell my story on air. They called it Survivor Justice. I politely declined. I wasn't interested in becoming a public figure. I was interested in closure. Real closure. Not the soft, filtered kind people post on Instagram with a quote from Brené Brown. I wanted the kind of closure that left no loose ends. So I made 2 phone calls. The first was to Derek. He was staying at a cheap motel on the edge of town, using a prepaid phone and wearing the same suit from our last encounter, only more wrinkled and desperate now. His lawyer had already advised him to lay low. The firm was in full PR meltdown. When he answered, his voice was tired. "Hello. Ava, please don't hang up." "I'm not hanging up," I said. "But this is the last conversation we will ever have. Do you understand?" Silence. "I read everything," I continued. "Not just the financial lies. The coaching emails. The strategy sessions. You didn't just fall for my sister. You paid her to destroy me." He inhaled sharply. "I didn't know it would go that far. You knew exactly what it was. You just liked having permission." I let the words hang. He didn't defend himself. "Not anymore. You'll sign the divorce papers. You'll waive any claim to my retirement, my home, and my future. And in return, I won't publicly testify against you." "Not yet." "And if I don't," he croaked. Then I released the unedited footage. The ones Beatrice recorded. The call where you asked her to coach you through my emotional collapse. The one where you said, and I quote, "She's too proud to see it coming." More silence. "Fine," he said. "You win." "No," I said. "I survived. There's a difference." I hung up. The second call was to Eliza. She didn't answer. So I drove. Straight to the retreat center in the mountains where she was hiding. Some overpriced Clarity Lodge, full of eucalyptus towels and guilt-stricken influencers trying to find their higher selves. She was on the back patio, wrapped in a beige shawl, sipping green tea, surrounded by strangers who didn't know who she really was. When she saw me, her face crumpled. She didn't run. She didn't speak. Just stared like a child caught stealing again. I walked straight to her table. Stood tall. Eliza." The group fell silent. She whispered, "What do you want?" "Nothing," I said. And then I reached into my purse, pulled out a copy of the article, the printed one, folded in half. I laid it in front of her. A little red circle drawn around one paragraph in Sharpie. Sources confirm Eliza Harrison not only advised male clients on emotionally manipulating their spouses, but was directly involved in the breakdown of multiple marriages, including that of her own sister. Her hand trembled. "This isn't revenge," I said. "It's record-keeping." She opened her mouth to speak, but I didn't let her. Don't say you're sorry. Don't say you loved me. Don't say anything. Just sit here and feel it. The weight. The exposure. The fact that the world finally knows who you are. I leaned closer. I didn't burn the bridge between us, Eliza. I just made sure you could never rebuild it. Then I turned and walked away. That night I stood in front of the mirror. Same house. Same porch light flickering. Same bathroom with the chip tile Derek always said we'd fix but never did. But I didn't see her anymore. The woman who waited, who doubted herself, who played nice while the walls fell down around her. I saw someone new. Not polished. Not perfect. But powerful. I didn't win because I destroyed them. I won because I survived them without becoming them. And in the ashes they left behind, I rebuilt something better. Not just a life, but a truth that no one could rewrite. Epilogue. Months later, the lawsuit moved forward. Derek settled quietly, giving up the house and a large chunk of his 401k. Eliza tried to rebrand again, under a different name, but too many women had been watching. She disappeared from the spotlight. I kept teaching. Not English anymore, adult education. A new course at a local community center called Emotional Literacy and Boundaries. The waiting list grew fast. Turns out, a lot of people were tired of being manipulated. As for Liam, we stayed in touch. Slowly, carefully. There were no promises. No grand romantic endings. Just two people with scarred hearts, rebuilding something that might one day resemble peace. And me? I finally understood something I'd missed for years. You don't need justice to move on. But when you get it, it tastes damn sweet.